Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is the second GIT presentation. Now here we can see the oesophagus delineated with barium, and this is a gastric fundus, and these are the mediastinal air surrounding the esophagus, and some contrast are seen leaking. This association of air leakage at the distal esophagus denotes rupture of the esophagus, and rupture of the esophagus could be due to instrumentation, and could be due to vomiting or severe cough. All can result in such an appearance. Air in the mediastinum, barium extravasating at the distal end of the esophagus. Here we have the esophagus. Compared to this one, it is dilated, and there is very short narrowed segment here. It denotes esophageal web. So short structure is very short, ultra short structure is definitely not corrosive, and usually it is not carcinoma, but it could be congenital web. Here the process is different, the appearance is different. The esophagus is dilated, so there is definite obstruction. The margins are somewhat smooth, and the segment is not so lengthy. Such lesions could be seen in scleroderma. This is a narrowed structure of a rather benign nature with short segment, to differentiate it from stricture due to corrosion, which is usually long segment. This is an inflamed esophagus. Of course, an inflamed esophagus will appear spiky like this and will show ulcerations. And by definition, ulcer is protrusion of the barium along or outside the lumen. So there are many protrusions here. That means there is ulcerating wall. The whole wall is ulcerating, and this appearance usually is seen in candid cases. In this one, the esophagus is not dilated, but the esophagus is showing spiky outline or hazy outline. Here are some spikes here. This is an esophagus which is used badly. It could be candidiasis, it could be aspirin. Aspirin will produce such small ulcerations like that. This is an esophagus showing spaced mucosal outlines. The mucosa is spaced from each other with these parallel lines, tortuous defects, linear tortuous defects characteristic of varices. Esophageal varices can produce such an appearance. Tortuous, parallel defects. This is something different. There is an intra-esophageal mass bulging into the lumen and reaching a large size. It's an intraluminal filling defect. The lumen is delineated here. This is classic appearance of leiomyoma of the esophagus. But this one is different. We have here a smooth mucosal outline, but starting from this area down to this area, there is something causing wavy irregular filling defect. And this irregular filling defect is creeping along the outline and is bulging as soft tissue mass outside. So this is one of the appearances of esophageal carcinoma, the creeping carcinoma. If this creeping carcinoma is encircling the whole thing, this will be a limited lumen inside, and it will be the core apple appearance. Here is the core apple appearance, this area. This is shouldering, and this is irregularity, and this is irregular short narrowing with the apple core appearance at the distal esophagus. Of course, there is irregularity and shouldering on the other hand here, on the other side. And there is definite dilatation with food residues. Food residue and definite dilatation. Another case where there is irregularity and shouldering, short stricture, irregular filling defects at the fundus, and large soft tissue displacing the barium filled stomach this way. This area is occupied by a large soft tissue swelling here and a large soft tissue swelling there. There should be coaptation between the diaphragm and the barium filled gastric fundus. The gastric fundus should be here. So there is a large soft tissue shadow here and large soft tissue shadow here and multiple irregularities along the fundus. Short segment of stricture and multiple irregularity along the distal esophagus. And notice that the esophagus is dilated, but not that of achalasia, which reach a large size, or sigmoid shaped esophagus. This appearance is due to, of course, malignant process. The malignant process here is involving both the fundus and the stomach, more at the region of the fundus than on the region of the stomach. So we call it gastroesophageal carcinoma. This is the dilatation of the sigmoid type, the sigmoid dilatation of the esophagus, characteristic of achalasia, and the achalasia is absence of some of the nerve cells at our nerve endings, abnormality at the distal esophagus, resulting in failure of correspondence and failure of yielding, failure of passing the amount of food. So by time it will dilate, and it is of a smooth tapering end, and there is no irregularity along the involved segment. Don't comment on this because this is not supine. The esophagus is filled, but the esophagus is not lying supine to see the whole thing. In this one we have gastric mucosa. These are the gastric mucosa breaching the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm, and going out like that, and this will be hernia. We have two types of hernia. Either the esophagus is there going to the stomach here, and the esophagus partly is protruding, and this will be called the paraesophageal hernia. And another type, which is this one, the esophagus is related to the gastric fundus itself, which is herniating, and this is called sliding hiatal hernia. So we have sliding hiatal hernia, and we have paraesophageal. The esophagus is in its place while the stomach is inverted upside down. The fundus is here, the fundus is this area, while the body, part of the body, is protruding up, and it's called paraesophageal. the hiatal hernia, which is beside the esophagus, paraesophageal. Notice two things here, that the cap is directed posterior towards the lateral, towards the vertebrae. This is a lateral view. The cap is directed posterior towards the vertebrae, and the stomach is upside down, is inverted upside down. So there is paraesophageal of the hernia and gastric volvulus. The stomach is in volvulus state. Now this one is the level. I beg your pardon, no, this will be postponed to GIT3.